Greetings, everyone. You're probably wondering, hey, that's that Dr. Hall, that history guy that teaches about the Revolution and colonial America. You know, what in the world's he doing with all those modern firearms? Relax. I'm still a history channel, but a friend of mine from church, he asked me, told me, hey, you know, I'm thinking about buying a gun. Don't really know, where to begin. I don't know what I'm looking for. Do you have any suggestions? And I said, yeah, why don't you come out to my place and let's shoot some guns. And I've got a bunch of different kinds of handguns. You can try different kinds and see what you like. And so we did, and we had a good time. But I was thinking about today, and it was an interesting day. It was a great day to do what we did. And I'll tell you why, okay? Because today is April 19th. Now, obviously, this video is not going to air on April 19th because I still got to edit it and upload it and all that stuff. But the actual day that I'm standing here recording this is April 19th. If you're not familiar with that date, April 19th, 1775 is the day the American Revolutionary War began. Now, it wasn't a war for independence yet. We had not declared independence. In fact, when they first started fighting on April 19th, 1775, they weren't quite sure what they were fighting for. But they did know that things had gone too far and they had to resort to violence. So in 1774, Great Britain had passed something known as the Coercive Acts, or in America, we refer to them as the Intolerable Acts. And basically what it did was it shut down Massachusetts' economy by closing its ports and put Massachusetts under martial law. And so the British military occupied the colony of Massachusetts. The colonists responded to this by training with firearms. Now, back in those days, there were actually laws in the colonies, these colonial militia laws that required the colonists to be armed and to train with arms, because until 1755, the colonies had always had to defend themselves anyway. Britain didn't send its army to America to defend its colonies until the 1750s. So every war that had been fought in the colonies prior to that, against Indians, against the French, against the Spanish, all of those wars were fought by the colonists themselves. That changes with the French and Indian War, and after the French and Indian War, the British never leave. That's when they begin passing these revenue acts like the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, etc. You get the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, all those things you should be familiar with. And if you're not, check out my channel because we talk about a lot of that stuff. But anyway, 1774, to get a tighter grip on Massachusetts, Britain passed the, as we call them in America, the Intolerable Acts. And so the colonists started training and stockpiling arms and ammo. And even though this was by law expected of them to do, the British knew this was a red flag. And so on April 18th, the British launched a force in Boston for the purpose of marching to Concord and basically confiscating a bunch of weapons from the colonists. And this is where you get the famous midnight ride of Paul Revere. And there's actually were more midnight riders than just Paul Revere. And we can talk about that later if you want. But that was the day that the colonists said enough is enough. And men armed with their personal weapons stood in defiance of tyranny that day, April 19th, 1775. First at Lexington and then at Concord. That was the day that blood began to be shed for what ultimately became our independence. And so it's a special day, and I think there's no better way to celebrate it than to get out here and shoot some privately owned weapons. Now, you might look at some of those weapons I fired in the video and you go, hey, this guy, I've seen this guy shooting flintlocks. Now he's out here shooting, AKs and ARs and shotguns and pistols and all kind of stuff. The colonists who stood in defiance of tyranny on April 19th, 1775, stood with their weapons, which were equivalent to the weapons that the British Army was carrying when they met them that day on the road to Concord.